Okay, so here's the second part of the story where I tell you the next thing that happened in the Bogle story. So the Bogle was on the horse. He's riding along. He's got his hood up over his eyes like this, and he's riding into the village. And he sees for the first time what the village really looks like. He sees the houses, he sees the street lights, he sees the different shops, he sees the little tiny village school. And he rides all the way through till he gets to the biggest house in the village, which is owned by the village doctor. And he goes in, gets off his horse, and with his heart pounding, he goes up and he knocks on the door of the doctor's house. The doctor was inside. He's eating his evening meal. Who can that be at the door at this time of night? I must go and check. So he goes all the way to the door, opened the door, and he looked out. And he looked to the left, and he looked to the right, and he looked all around. He didn't see anybody because he didn't look down, because the Bogle was down. The Bogle was quite small. The Bogle was down there. He didn't see him. He looked to the side, looked to the other side. Nobody at the door. It must be children playing games again. Closed the door and he went back and he's sitting down and he's having his meat and potatoes and vegetables. And he hears the knocking at the door again. Oh, who is it now? And he went off to open the door. He opened the door. He looked to one side. Looked to the other side. Did he look down? No. Those children playing those games. Closed the door and he went in again. And he was going back to his meal and he's eating his food and he hears it again. A much louder knock this time. That's it. I'm going to find out who's playing these games. And he opened the door and he looked to the side. He looked to the other side. And then the Bogle, who's down below, made a cough. And the doctor looked down. And he looked, and he just saw the hood covering the face like this. He couldn't see the face. Couldn't see anything, just a big coat with a hood. And the doctor looked down. Can I help you? The Bogle nodded. Is somebody sick? The Bogle nodded again. Do you want me to come with you? Let me get my doctor's bag, because doctors always have that big bag, right? A big leather bag. So he went inside and he got his doctor's bag and he came out, and he was surprised when he came out because the Bogle was already on the horse. Do you want me to come up behind you on the horse? Okay, I'm coming. And the Bogle gave out his hand for the doctor to take hold of. And the doctor was surprised at how long the fingers were and slightly funny colour. But he'd seen many strange things in his life, so he just accepted it. And he took the Bogle's hand, and the Bogle pulled him up really easily behind him on the horse. For such a small creature, he was very, very strong. The doctor was also a bit surprised at how strong it was. And they started to ride off through the village. And as it passed every house, the doctor would say, is it in this house we need to go? No, no. And then the house on the other side, do we have to go in this house on the other side? No, no, no. And then they started to get closer to the edge of the village, and the doctor's heart started to race a little bit because he saw he was getting closer to the village, to the woods, the forest. And finally they got to the last house of the village before the village ended. And the doctor said, sure, it must be this house here, the last one, the shoemaker's house. Stranger, do you mean to say we're going to leave the village and go through the forest? And the doctor's heart began to race faster and faster as they went deeper into the forest. And the doctor started to shake and shake as they went through the forest. And he said, stranger, are you not afraid we're going to see the Bogle? And the Bogle made the, no. And he said, do you think the Bogle's over there in the bushes? No. And the doctor started to hold tighter and tighter on to the stranger in front of him. Tighter and tighter. Stranger, I'm afraid. I think we might see the Bogle behind that tree over there. Do you think he's behind that tree? No. How can you be so sure? I just know it. And the doctor held tighter and tighter onto him, not knowing all the time he was hanging on tightly to the Bogle the whole time. And they rode through the forest and they rode through the forest, and they got out the other side, and the doctor was, whew, thank goodness for that. We got through the whole forest and we didn't even see a Bogle. I'm so happy. And they rode up to the farmhouse. And when they got there, the doctor went down and he took his bag. The Bogle stayed up on the horse. And the doctor went to the front door of the house and he was about to knock on the door when he realised when he went in, everyone's going to say to him, how did you know how to come here? Who told you that the farmer's wife was sick? Who helped? So he thought, I have to ask who helped me. Who was it? Who was brave enough to go through the woods in the night with the Bogle around? So he turned around and the Bogle was there with his hood still over his face. And the doctor said, stranger, when I go in, they're going to ask me who helped. Who are you? And the Bogle said, when they ask you who helped you, you must tell them that it was, and he took off the hood, the Bogle. And the doctor, he stood like this. And he dropped his bag on the ground, and he stood like this. And then he stopped standing like that, and then he did it again. And he stood like that for 5 minutes. And the Bogle just turned around on his horse and rode away into the woods. But the doctor finally, after he'd stopped standing like that for 5 minutes, he gave himself a shake and he knocked on the door. He went in and he gave the farmer's wife the medicine that she needed, and she was fine. And he told them who had helped. Now the very next day, the farmer's horse was found wandering just outside the farm, so that was fine, with the coat over the back of it. And the farmer's wife got well again. And she never forgot the kindness of the Bogle, and every night she would put the bowl of milk and bread in front of the door. And sometimes, for a special treat, she would put a little bit of meat in there as well, because she knew Bogles like that. And and here's the funny part of the story, she still never opened the door to see the Bogle or to say anything to the Bogle. And I want you to think about that. Even though the Bogle never did anything bad to anybody, in fact only did a good thing, people were still afraid of him. And people still didn't want to see him or be anywhere near him. And I wonder if you could tell your teacher or tell me, send them a little note on Seesaw and say why you think that people still were afraid of that Bogle, even though he'd proven himself to be actually very kind. Okay? And that is the story of the Bogle. I hope you enjoyed it.